I always enjoy my conversations with this terrific writer. It is Shalise Manza Young from Yahoo. And Shalise, I had to put the journal. You're a journalism instructor. I had to put that in there because some athletes think, okay, I'll just be a media person too. What they do is not that easy, or not that difficult. It's easy. I'll do that too. So if you're gonna be a journalist, Shalise? Isn't this the time for journalist, media member Draymond Green to
Yeah,
weigh in?
he has to weigh in. If you want the shine during the good times, you need to speak up and be honest during the bad times as well. That's what we do. Like you said, journalist, a true media member should be trying to get to the bottom of things. Draymond obviously is one of the two people involved in what happened and what looks like really the aggressor. You got to speak up, can't hide from it.
Don't hide from it. You certainly have not hidden from some of the big stories that we've been talking about lately, the last couple of weeks. And here's a story. I know a lot of people tried to link them. I didn't think the stories were linked. They just happened to come out at the same time. It went something like this. The logic was, well, if you're talking about Ime Udoka, but you're not talking about Brett Favre, you're doing something wrong. Like, okay, fine. They're two different stories. But I do agree we should be talking about Brett Favre. You've written about Brett Favre. And I just feel like, Shalise, the more I hear about Favre, the more I think, okay, what was he thinking? What were they thinking? And what more is to come? Tell us about, you just give us your assessment of what has happened and what's happening with Brett Favre.
So what's happening is we are learning more and more about what exactly he knew. Hopefully your viewers know at this point that Brett Favre allegedly received close to $8 million in federal welfare money that was intended for the neediest people in Mississippi. If you don't already know, Mississippi is already the poorest state in the country in terms of percentage of citizens, residents who are Black. They have the highest percentage in the country. And of course, because America is America, there are more poor Black people than poor white people in Mississippi. So this is federal funding that went to a woman named Nancy New, and she sort of just used it as a piggy bank for some of the most famous athletes in Mississippi and other people. Brett Favre got the most money. He seemed to be the greediest. He's not the only one. You and I, Michael, are around the same age. So if you remember the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase of wrestling fame, he's involved in this too. He and his sons got some money. But Favre, the thing that really frustrates me, and I'm with you, saying that Ime and Favre, they're two different type of stories. They're very interesting for different reasons. The Ime story, obviously, because of Nia Long, there's a Hollywood tie-in. It's sexy and sort of titillating. And this Brett Favre thing, it's really just enraging if you're paying attention. I was fortunate enough to speak with a man earlier this week who works with low income to try to save single mothers and low income people and make sure that the children of Mississippi who come from low income backgrounds. He said, and this is heartbreaking, this number will stick with me for a very long time. A child born in the Mississippi Delta region of the state of Mississippi has basically a 0% chance of ever earning more money than their parents do. And these are the type of people. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
What a stat.
We're talking about the TANF funds, the TANF funds, the state of Mississippi, because of misogyny, because of racism, they put so many hoops on this money. It's federal money. It's meant for people who are they're in between jobs. They need childcare so that they can go, to job interviews and things like that. They might need rental assistance. It's $260 a month for a family of three. This is the amount of money that we're talking about. They have to jump through an insane number of hoops to the point where those people who actually can, it's 222 adults in the state of Alabama who receive currently that $260 a month. There are over 350,000 adults in Mississippi who are below the poverty line. Many of them single mothers who are working 40 hours a week, more than 40 hours a week, and are still below the poverty line. And the problem obviously is much bigger than Brett Favre. It's systemic. It's a decades-long thing in Mississippi of neglect, the welfare queen trope that we've heard of since the 1980s, that, women, especially Black women, are just having babies after babies, and all they want to do is sit around in their apartment and kick their feet up and collect welfare checks. And that's not at all the case. It's never been the case. It's just such a big, sprawling story. And it's really, if you know anything about almost the history of this country, it kind of is emblematic of it. The rich people always find a way. Why am I going to spend my money if I can spend yours, especially if it's taking from the least among us?
No, it's really amazing. And I think, before we move on and I'll ask you about something else in football, this is another journalism lesson, really, in that, if you've ever interviewed Brett Favre, he's really charming. I had the pleasure of interviewing him, years ago. And I've seen him just kind of take over a room. He's captivating. It was the Southern drawl. It was the relatability. It's just the way he carried himself and the talent at the time. Now, this is years ago when he was still with the Packers and winning multiple MVPs. He had this way of just kind of disarming you. And Shalise, keep in mind that at the time he was in scandal with being addicted to painkillers. And that was covered in such a way that the coverage didn't match the severity and the gravity of what he was going through. It was like he became a sympathetic figure there. So he has always had that. And I think the journalism takeaway is, just because you like somebody, just because they're kind in an interview setting, don't take that to mean that this is who they are, that you somehow know the real person. You are getting a snapshot, you're getting a glimpse. And most often, Shalise, it's the glimpse that they want to give us, but it's not necessarily an accurate picture with no filters, to bring it back to Instagram.
No, it's 100% true. I've said it to my students in the past, is that you always, when you become a beat reporter, especially, you spend so much time around these athletes in particular that you feel like you know them, and you always have to remind yourself that you know of these athletes what they want you to know. And for me personally, no situation brought that home more than the Aaron Hernandez situation. I was still a Patriots beat writer when that all happened. And I didn't love Aaron Hernandez. He wasn't really a warm and fuzzy, charismatic guy. But, to find out that this guy behind the scenes is potentially killed 3 people and attempted murder on a 4th, it really brought home that you don't know, these athletes except for what they want you to know. And it's something that we all have to remember. I mean, Favre in particular, there's now a whole dossier on what kind of a bad guy he is. What he did to Jen Sturger with the New York Jets, she did absolutely nothing wrong in that situation. And she was the one who lost her career, as a potential broadcaster. There were 2 massage therapists that Favre settled with through the Jets that he did similar, sending them suggestive and lewd text messages. Where have we heard that before in recent months? So
that's right.
There's a long line of things with Brett Favre, and this is just the latest. And it looks like he might not skate on this one potentially. He has not been charged with anything yet. As with my journalist hat on, I do have to say that he has not been charged with anything.
Allegedly,
he's named in a lawsuit, right? But he's not facing any charges yet. So the whole thing, like I said, the thing with Favre, and like you said, it's a great point, and I'm sure you tell your students as well, is you take what they say, and some guys are nice, and there are guys that I covered with the Patriots that, I feel like they probably really are the guys that I believe them to be. Devin McCourty, Matthew Slater, Ty Warren, Richard Seymour seemed like great guys. I think they are great guys, but at the same time, I could never you can't just walk around presuming that forever, because
that's right.
Things went on a dime. You can find out one thing that we don't know.
Let's talk about something on the field before we let you go. And I'm sorry we couldn't end on a higher note, because you're thinking, hey, we go from a serious topic to sports and it should be fun. Except we saw that game last night. And that's a downer. Wow. I mean, what a boring game. Just awful. It was the Colts and Broncos. And Ryan Harris told us yesterday, he said, hey, expect an ugly game. And he gave it too much credit. He said there would be 31 total points. His prediction was 17-14. We didn't even get to 31 points in that game. It was a mess. But the big thing that stands out to me is I'm looking at Russell Wilson like, okay, all right, you've been watching football for a long time. Don't believe it. Don't believe what your eyes are telling you. Don't listen to that message going to your brain that Russell Wilson's not the same elite quarterback anymore. But it was hard. It was hard to quiet those voices. What did you see, and what did you think after what you saw last night?
Yeah, it's been a slog for Russell Wilson. It really has, and it was easy to think that, you know, the thing was he forced his way out of Seattle, but maybe Seattle knew something that we didn't. You know Bill Belichick even better than I do, and his firm belief is it's better to let somebody go a year too early than a year too late. And it looks like Pete Carroll was definitely of the same mind in this situation, that he knew from seeing Russell Wilson in practice every day that something wasn't right. And maybe it's Russ, maybe it's the new surroundings, maybe Nathaniel Hackett isn't ready to be a head coach yet. You know, I know you guys have talked a lot about Nathaniel Hackett and whether or not he's ready. Those things could all be playing into it. You know, my colleague Dan Wetzel, I think the headline of his current column is Russell Wilson really this bad? Because it would be pretty stunning that it feels like he just fell off a cliff. You know, he was rocky last year, but compared it to this year, it seemed like there is a real stark difference in the guy that we saw just a few years ago, and the talent and the ability to make something out of nothing so many times. And he's washed. He just seems like he's washed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's funny. We got this headline up here from Mark Kisler, and the subhead trips me out. It says, Broncos country knows bad coaching. Hackett makes Vance Joseph and Vic Fangio look good. Now those are fighting words. Those are fighting words in Denver and Boulder, Colorado Springs, the whole state. Those are fighting words. You know what that means.
That's rough.
All right. Well, Shalise, we always enjoy talking to you. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll check in with you soon, I hope.
You bet, Michael. Take care.
All right. Shalise Manza Young, great columnist for Yahoo Sports. We got a lot more to talk about today, too, but that game, woo! Hey, thanks for watching Brother from Another on YouTube. Make sure you hit subscribe before you leave, and be sure to watch us 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Peacock. Appreciate you.